Icejades is a control deck that becomes a pretty good rogue deck when Icejade Gymir and other Icejade support is released. In the current state of MasterDuel, it's barely playable, so don't expect it to get you to Diamond. The goal of this deck is to build boards that are hard to break. Icejade monsters have high defenses with card effects that lower attack or float into other monsters, and Icejade spells shut down your opponent's monster effects. And on both players' turns, you can add an Icejade card to your hand to gain card advantage. Then you can attack until their life reaches 0. One of its win conditions involves using the Icejade field spell with the Icejade continuous spell and Icejade Kosmochlor. With these 3 powers combined, it's a trifecta one-sided skill drain. While these 3 cards are face up on your side of the field, your opponent will not be able to activate monster effects on their side of the field. The first card in this win condition involves the field spell Icejade Cenote Enion Cradle. When this card is activated, you can add one of your Icejade monsters that is banished or in your graveyard to your hand. You can only activate one Icejade Enion Cradle per turn, so you'll only be able to add one Icejade monster to your hand per turn. This effect is very useful since many of our Icejades like to go to the graveyard and banish themselves, so we can use the field spell to recycle our Icejades. And another thing this field spell can do is that once per turn you can target one water you control, that monster, along with any face-up monsters your opponent currently controls, loses attack equal to the targeted monster's original attack until the end of this turn. So if you target one of your water monsters with 3000 attack, then you would lower that monster and your opponent's monsters by 3000. So the effect of this field spell allows for a lot of versatility. The first is that it helps you to stall and control the field while you're building your own resources. The second is that you can chain block with this card, so if your opponent has a card that activates when a monster effect is activated, you can chain the field spell to your Icejade monster effect to prevent your opponent from responding to your Icejade. The third is that it lowers your own attack, so you can summon Egyptian God Slime using a level 10 Aqua with 0 attack as material. The fourth, since this deck can consistently lower your opponent's attack, you can use card effects that take advantage of this. For example, Chaos Number C103, which can banish an opponent's monster with an attack different than its original attack. The second card in our win condition is Kosmchlor, which has the effect: if either player controls a face-up card in the field zone, you can special summon this card from your hand. And this is an inherent summon, so it does not start a chain. And Kosmchlor's next effect states, while the Icejade field spell is on the field, monsters your opponent controls can only activate monster effects the turn they are summoned. This means if your opponent has a Zeus, and you have a field spell and then special summon Kosmchlor from the hand, your opponent will not be able to respond with Zeus, even though Zeus is a quick effect. Kosmchlor's effect is active immediately as it hits the field, and because Zeus was not summoned this turn, it cannot activate its effects. Kosmchlor has another effect. If any of your Icejade monster battles an opponent's monster, that opponent's monster loses 1000 attack during that damage calculation only. And this effect does stack, so with 2 Kosmchlors on the field, our opponent will lose 2000 attack. And the final card in our win condition is Icejade Curse. It is a continuous spell that has the effect, while an Icejade monster and the Icejade field spell are on the field, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters that were summoned that turn. So while Icejade Curse stops your opponent from activating monster effects the turn they are summoned, Kosmchlor shuts down your opponent's ability to activate monster effects outside the turn they are summoned, so together, your opponent cannot activate monster effects on the field at all. Once per turn, Icejade Curse also lets you deal burn damage if any of your Icejade monsters destroys a monster in battle, or is destroyed by a monster in battle. Then your opponent will take burn damage equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. Since the Icejade field spell lowers your opponent's attack, you'll want to beat over the highest attack monster on your opponent's side of the field with an Icejade, so you can use Icejade Curse to deal a lot of burn damage. So don't forget about this effect, because it can be the single thing that helps you one turn kill. Because our win condition is a 3-card combo, there's a low chance that you'll be able to shut down your opponent's monster's effects on your opening turn. So most games you'll be relying on other strategies. Many of your Icejade cards have effects that float into other water monsters if you or your opponent removes your water monsters from the field. The first of these card effects are these 3 Icejade monsters that have the same effect while in the graveyard. This effect says, if a face-up water monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card. Special summon one Icejade monster from your hand or graveyard. And you can activate this effect on either player's turn, so when your water monster is destroyed, you can banish an Icejade monster from the graveyard to then special summon an Icejade from your hand or graveyard. Preferably an Icejade Aegirine, so you can use its search effect to build resources for the following turn. And you won't have to wait for your opponent to destroy your own water monsters, you can destroy them yourself to trigger your Icejade graveyard effects. Using a card like Icejade Erosion, a trap card that has two effects. The first is that it lets you target one face-up card your opponent controls, destroy one Icejade monster you control, and if you do, negate the targeted card's effect until the end of this turn. You can use this trap card to protect your back row by targeting Harpy's Feather Duster, then destroying one of your water monsters to negate Feather Duster. And because one of your water monsters was destroyed by a card effect, you can chain an Icejade monster from your graveyard, banishing it to special summon Icejade Aegirine from the graveyard, and then use Icejade Aegirine's effect to add an Icejade card to your hand for the following turn. In this replay, our opponent just shuffled one of our water monsters back into the deck, so now we can activate Icejade Erosion's second effect. If a face-up water monster you control leaves the field by your opponent, except by being destroyed and except during the damage step, you can add to your hand or special summon one Icejade monster from your deck. So if your opponent banishes, tributes, shuffles, or returns to hand one of your water monsters, you can special summon any Icejade monster from your deck. But you'll need to leave your toggle on in case your opponent removes your monster using a card that doesn't start a chain like Kaiju or Lava Golem. And this deck has many ways to search cards. The first one is Foolish Burial Goods. This will be used to send Ice Barrier trap card to the graveyard so we can banish it to add any level 5 or higher water monster to our hand. We'll be using Icejade Cradle to add any Icejade monster to our hand, and then Icejade Aegirine, which when normal or special summon, can search for any Icejade spell or trap card, and because it can search for Icejade Cradle, it also means we can use Icejade Aegirine to search for any Icejade monster spell or trap card. So Icejade Aegirine is going to be the best searcher for you in this deck. Icejade Aegirine is not only the best searcher in your deck, but it also has a quick effect that lets you gain card advantages. So when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets Icejade Aegirine or targets this card for an attack, you can activate this effect. The next time this card would be destroyed by battle or card effect this turn, it is not destroyed. Also special summon one water monster from your hand or graveyard, except Icejade Aegirine, but return it to the hand during the end phase. So in this replay, our opponent has attacked Aegirine, we trigger its effect to special summon a water from the graveyard or hand. We'll special summon Supreme Sea Mare. Supreme Sea Mare, when summoned, has an effect. It can send one Aqua from your deck to the graveyard, and because a monster was summoned, we'll chain our field spell to it to lower Supreme Sea Mare's attack and our opponent's monsters equal to the attack of Supreme Sea Mare. Supreme Sea Mare resolves, allowing us to send an Icejade Tremora to the graveyard, giving us further protection if our opponent does manage to destroy one of our monsters. At the end phase, Aegirine then sends the water monster to the hand. You can use the effects of Icejade Erosion and your Icejade monsters in the graveyard to summon Aegirine during both turns, so you can keep adding cards to your hand. Next up is Icejade Creation Aegirocassis. This is a level 7 tuner that has a quick effect that can, from the hand or graveyard, equip to an Icejade monster you control. A monster equipped by Aegirocassis gains 400 attack and defense for each banished monster. This can be very useful later in the game after you or your opponent has banished monsters, since it can just keep coming back from the graveyard to give a huge attack boost to any of your Icejades. And while this card is equipped to a monster, you can special summon this card. If you have a level 3 Aegirine, then you can synchro summon into a level 10. Sadly, you cannot equip and special summon on the same turn, so it's very slow. You can summon it from the hand with Icejade Tremora, but there are better ways to synchro summon. Our final monster is Icejade Creation Kingfisher. This card can target one water monster you control, equip this card from your hand or field to it, and while this card is equipped to a monster, you can target one monster your opponent controls with attack less than or equal to the equipped monster's defense. Special summon this card, and if you do, return that targeted monster to the hand. And now we can equip Icejade Creation Kingfisher back to Kosmochlor. And if we want to, we can use our Kaiju again. Kingfisher has another effect. An Icejade monster equipped with this card can attack while in defense position. If it does, apply its defense for damage calculation. In this guide, I'll be using replays using an Icejade Sharks deck. There will be a deck list in the description. A pure Icejade deck lacks consistency, so usually people either add Deep Sea Diva or Supreme Sea Mare, since both of these cards can be used to grab Icejades from your deck. In this deck, I'm using Supreme Sea Mare, which can be used to send Icejades to the graveyard. We can use the Icejade Field Spell or Marincess Coral Anemone to grab the Icejade from the graveyard. In Icejade Sharks, we can also use Buzzsaw Shark as one of our normal summons. We can also search for Buzzsaw Shark using Abyss Shark. Buzz Shark doesn't have synergy with other Icejade cards since it locks you into special summoning XZs from the extra deck and doesn't help you turbo out Icejade Aegirine. Buzzsaw makes it much easier to summon Abyss Dweller, which prevents your opponent from activating monster effects in the graveyard, so it's very useful in the graveyard meta. So you may want to bump up Buzzsaw Shark to 3 copies if you're in a graveyard meta like Tierra Laments. So let's get into some replays. So how do you know which cards to add to your hand with Aegirine? Together, Icejade Curse and the Field Spell are a good combo, but you won't always have access to both. In this replay, we will use Icejade Tremora and Icejade Erosion. We'll use Aegirine to search for Icejade Erosion. We'll banish the Ice Barrier trap card that we sent to the graveyard with Foolish Goods, and then add an Icejade Tremora to our hand. We'll special summon a water from the hand, sending Tremora to the graveyard. Using the 2 water monsters, we'll link summon into a Marincess Coral Anemone, and then use its effect to special summon an Icejade Aegirine from the graveyard. So we can use Erosion to slow down our opponent by negating a card, then use Tremora to recycle Aegirine so we can have a better following turn. So now we know we're playing a branded deck, so we can save Erosion for branded fusion. Our opponent activates a Kelbeck, and we're going to say no to that with Called by the Grave. Now they're going to search for branded fusion. They activate branded fusion, and we activate Icejade Erosion to negate that face-up card. Erosion then destroys Aegirine. Branded fusion is negated, and because a water monster was destroyed, we can banish Icejade Tremora to special summon an Icejade from the graveyard or hand, then use Aegirine to add a field spell to our hand. We'll activate the field spell. Using the field spell, we'll add the banished Tremora to our hand. We'll use Erosion to negate this search. Erosion destroys Aegirine. Anemone special summons Aegirine. Then use Aegirine to search for Icejade Curse. And we want our Tremora in the graveyard, so we're going to special summon a water monster. We can use the field spell to lower their attack, but it won't do us any good. We activate Icejade Curse and then go into battle. They take damage from Icejade Curse. So we've shut down their monster effects, and we still have an on-field Omni-Negate. The opponent can't come back from this, so they're going to go ahead and concede. So now we're going second against Therions. In this replay, we're going to wall the opponent with our defenses, and then we're going to try to finish them off the following turn. When it comes to playing Icejades, this deck has a non-linear playstyle, but if you activate Icejade Cradle, adding Icejade Aegirine to your hand is almost always going to be the best play, since it can add any other Icejade card to your hand. Summon Aegirine and they respond with a Solemn Judgment. We'll activate the Ice Barrier to send a Tremora to the graveyard and add it to our hand. Then activate the field spell to add Aegirine to our hand. Use Tremora to special summon Aegirine. Activate Aegirine and then chain with the field spell to play through any negations. Using Aegirine's effect, we'll add a Icejade Cradle to our hand. Then use Icejade Cradle to add Kosmochlor. Kosmochlor does not start a chain. Kosmochlor now locks the opponent out of activating monster effects. And this trap card negates Abyss Shark, but because it doesn't destroy, we'll keep our Abyss Shark in our hand. So we'll activate Curse, locking out our opponent of using monster effects, and pass our turn. The opponent summons another Therion. Kosmochlor reduces the attack of enemy monsters that do battle with your Icejades by 1000. And people will fall for this because they will not read this card. Now we can activate our Abyss Shark to add a Dream Shark to the hand. Using the field spell will lower the opponent's attack by Icejade Kosmochlors. Then link summon into a Marincess Anemone. Then we'll special summon Aegirine to add a Cradle to our hand. Use Cradle to add Kingfisher. And we would have been able to finish off our opponent. So this replay shows off the Icejade graveyard effects. We'll normal summon Icejade Aegirine. The opponent responds with an effect veiler targeting Aegirine, allowing us to activate its second effect. When targeted, we can special summon a water monster from the hand or graveyard, so we'll special summon our Supreme Sea Mare. And because Supreme Sea Mare was special summoned, we can send a Aqua to the graveyard. We'll send an Icejade Acti and then special summon Abyss Shark to add a Crystal Shark. Then we'll link summon into Marincess Coral Anemone. Then special summon the Icejade Acti to discard a water monster from our hand to draw a card. Sadly, it's another Max C. Now we can special summon the Crystal Shark from the graveyard to Exi summon into a Stealth Kragan. Our opponent is playing a Shark stack, targeting Stealth Kragan to special summon a Crystal Shark, so we're going to respawn with a Max C. And they negate it with a Crossout Designator. We're going to go ahead and destroy that Buzzsaw with Stealth Kragan. When Kragan is destroyed, we can special summon Kragan spawns. But our opponent here is just going to go straight into a Zeus. We're going to start off here by bringing back Aegirine, using its effect to add the Icejade field spell, and hopefully we'll be able to special summon Kosmochlor, but our opponent does wipe the field before we can. I'm going to go ahead and keep a Maxi face down in defense position. So the opponent has summoned another Stealth Kragan. This is going to turn all monsters on the field into water, so they destroy Max C, while Max C is a water monster, triggering Icejade Acti's graveyard effect. To special summon an Icejade, we'll use Icejade Aegirine to add the field spell to our hand. The opponent then attacks Aegirine, will activate its effect to special summon Sea Mare. Use Sea Mare to send an Icejade Tremora to the graveyard. An Icejade Aegirine is protected by card destruction because it used its second effect. And our opponent just keeps giving us resources by destroying our water monsters while we have an Icejade in the graveyard to recycle our Icejade monsters so we can gather more resources. We'll activate the Icejade Cradle to add Kingfisher to our hand. Then activate Foolish Burial to send Ice Barrier to the graveyard. Using Ice Barrier, we will send Tremora to the graveyard to add it to our hand. We'll activate Tremora to summon Kosmochlor from the hand, and using the field spell to lower their attack. Then we'll special summon the other Kosmochlor, summon Egyptian God Slime. We'll equip Kingfisher to Kosmochlor, then special summon Kingfisher to send Kragan back to the hand, then attach Kingfisher back to Kosmochlor. Now it can attack and defense. We'll special summon Dream Shark and then target a water monster to special summon Crystal Shark from the graveyard. Then we'll Exi summon into Nash Knight. And that's enough to finish off our opponent. So in this replay, we are going second against Sprights, and we have a pretty good hand, so we're going to activate our Foolish Burial Goods, see if we can bait an Ash Blossom, add a Kosmochlor to the hand, activate the field spell, and then special summon Kosmochlor to lock our opponent out of activating monster effects. Then we'll use the field spell to lower their attack by 1500. We'll use Aegirine to add an Icejade Curse to the hand. We'll activate Kingfisher to return a monster in defense position back to the hand. Then equip it right back to Kosmochlor, special summon our Dream Shark to link summon into a Marincess Coral Anemone, and use Anemone to bring back our Aegirine, activate the Icejade Curse, and go into battle. Kingfisher lets our Kosmochlor attack in defense position, and Icejade Curse does damage equal to the attack of the monster that was destroyed. Kosmochlor decreases their attack by 1000. And now we can go for game. So in this replay, we're up against a Rikka Princess deck. They can quick effect tribute any one of my monsters using the field spell. And they have 2 negates, one on the field and one on the graveyard. We'll normal summon Aegirine. They activate the Rikka Princess in the graveyard to negate my monster effect by tributing 1 plant monster, and the field spell lets them tribute my monster instead. And our other cards in our hand require a water monster in the field, so we're just going to set 2 cards and pass our turn. So they will add a Rikka monster to their hand. Then they will use the field spell to set a Rikka trap card. Then they will Exi summon into a Rikka Queen Strenna. Rikka Queen Strenna detaches 1 material to add a Rikka from the graveyard to their hand. So they'll go into the battle phase, and we're just waiting to flip the Ice Barrier trap card. We'll activate it. They activate the Teardrop Rikka Queen, detaching 1 material to tribute one of their Exi monsters, Rikka Queen Strenna. Ice Barrier then changes their attack to 0 and negates their effects. And if Rikka Queen Strenna is tributed, they can special summon 1 rank 5 or higher plant Exi monster from the extra deck. Then they can attach Rikka Queen Strenna to it as material. At the end phase, we'll banish the Ice Barrier trap card to send Tremora to the graveyard to add Aegirine to our hand. Now the opponent will try to tribute our Aegirine again, but this time we have an Icejade Erosion on the field. So we'll normal summon Aegirine. They respond to negate it with Rikka Princess, and then tributing it with the field spell. We'll respond with Icejade Erosion, and because our monster was removed from the field without being destroyed, we can activate Icejade Erosion to special summon an Icejade from the deck. We'll summon an Icejade Acti from the deck. And when it is special summoned, we can discard 1 card to draw a card. Our opponent tries to negate this with Sacred Tree Beast. We activate the Icejade Erosion to target that Sacred Beast. The opponent tries to dodge the targeting effect by tributing Sacred Beast. Sacred Beast needs to detach materials as part of its effect, so Sacred Beast cannot resolve, so Acti resolves, allowing us to draw. And because the water monster was destroyed, we can banish our Icejade Tremora from the graveyard to special summon Icejade Aegirine from the graveyard. The opponent then flips over their trap card, targeting Icejade Aegirine. And this is an advantage of having a deck that most people are unfamiliar with. We can activate Aegirine to special summon a water monster from the graveyard or hand. The trap card lets them take control of Aegirine. Now we can activate Foolish Goods to send Ice Barrier to the graveyard. Using Ice Bear, we can banish it to add a Kosmochlor to our hand. We can then activate the Icejade field spell to add a banished Tremora to our hand. Here we'll use Tremora to special summon Kosmochlor from the hand. Then we'll lower the attack of all of our opponent's monster by Kosmochlor's attack, and then we can summon Egyptian God Slime. We'll special summon Abyss Shark to add Dream Shark to the hand. Dream Shark can special summon itself if all the monsters you control are water. Using Abyss Shark and Dream Shark, we can link summon into Marincess Coral Anemone. Use Anemone to bring back an Abyss Shark so we can Acti summon. Into a Nash Knight. And we want to OTK, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of the Aegirine. Using Nash Knight's effect, we can attach the Aegirine to it as material. Then we'll Acti summon into CXZ Nash using Nash Knight as material. Nash Knight can detach one material to special summon a Chaos number, so we're going to special summon C103 Ragnafinity. Ragnafinity can deal damage equal to the difference of a monster's original attack and its current attack, and if it does, it can banish it. Abyss Shark's double damage lets us deal 5600 damage with Ragnafinity. So if you want a one-turn kill, C103 Ragnafinity is going to be the one monster you'll have to keep in mind, since we can easily modify the opponent's attack with either the Icejade field spell or the Ice Barrier trap card. So in this replay, we'll be protecting our cards from targeting using Egyptian God Slime. We're going second against Marincess, and they have an Argonaut on the field. Argonaut can negate an activated effect of a spell or trap, but does not negate activation. The activated effect of the field spell adds an Icejade from the graveyard to our hand, but we don't have any anyway. We summon Kosmchlor to summon Egyptian God Slime. The opponent tries to negate Sea-Mare with a hand trap that targets, but while Slime is on the field, your opponent can only target Slime with effects that target or target for attacks. Slime also cannot be destroyed in battle, so it's very useful at walling the opponent. We'll use Anemone to special summon Aegirine sent to the graveyard by Supreme Sea-Mare, and then we'll add an Erosion to our hand. And just like Egyptian God Slime, we can only target Argonaut for attacks. So we'll have to pass our turn to our opponent and see which Water Waifu deck will break the other board first. So the opponent is recycling the Marincess Wave hand trap. They tribute our monster with a Kaiju. Icejade Erosion lets us float into another Icejade. We'll summon an Icejade Aegirocassis. We want Aegirocassis so we can synchro summon into the following turn into a Sword Soul Chengying. We can break Marincess by getting rid of their field spell, but they can recycle their Marincess spell and trap cards from the graveyard, so we'll have to banish the field spell. So the opponent has summoned their last monster, so we'll activate the field spell and lower all of their attacks by Egyptian God Slime. So in the battle phase, they try to negate Egyptian God Slime, but we're going to negate Marincess Wave with Icejade Erosion. We'll banish Tremora and then summon an Icejade Aegirine from the graveyard. Argonaut is unaffected by Egyptian God Slime, so it's going to target for attack Marincess Coral Anemone. They then use Argonaut to target one water monster they control and Egyptian God Slime, sending both back to the hand. At the end phase, we'll equip Aegirocassis from the graveyard to Aegirine. And during our standby phase, Bubble Reef lets them banish one water monster from their graveyard to draw one card. At the beginning of the main phase, we'll summon Aegirocassis, activate Curse, we'll activate Erosion, and they use Argonaut to summon one water monster equipped to it to negate Erosion. We'll use Cradle to add Kingfisher. Then link into Anemone to bring back Aegirine. Use Aegirine to add an Icejade field spell to our hand. Then use the field spell to add an Icejade Kosmochlor to the hand. Now we can summon Egyptian God Slime, but we want to keep Kosmochlor on the field to shut them down. We use Kingfisher to send Bubble Reef back to the hand. Now we can synchro summon into Sword Soul Chengying. So on the opponent's turn, we'll activate Icejade Erosion, destroying our Icejade, banishing Icejade Tremora to summon an Icejade Aegirine from the graveyard. Then we'll activate Sword Soul Chengying, chain Aegirine, and then chain the field spell. We'll banish their field spell and a Marincess from their graveyard. And with the field spell gone, we have successfully walled our opponent. So who's the better water waifu deck? Is it Icejades or Marincess? I'll let you guys decide.